Brigadier David Granger, of course, you are the leader of the People's National Congress Reform, and you are currently the presidential candidate for a Partnership for National Unity Alliance for Change. Thank you very much for sitting down with us as we talk about something that's very, very important with focus on Region 6, the East Berbice quarantine. Thank you, sir.
It's always a pleasure.
All right. First of all, human safety, East Berbice quarantine, that has been an issue for a very, very long time. The fact is the residents of that community, or I should say those communities in Region 6, do not necessarily feel safe. How will David Granger and the coalition government promote safety on the East Berbice quarantine?
Well, to start with, the Partnership for National Unity and the Alliance for Change coalition are very concerned because the East Berbice quarantine region is one of our most important economic regions. And people may not realize it, but it is a part of Guyana which touches another Caribbean state. In fact, Suriname and Guyana are the only two CARICOM states which share a border. And East Berbice quarantine is right on that border. So we are very concerned about the vulnerability of East Berbice quarantine to crime. Now, over the years, particularly during the last 23 years of PPP administration, security is deteriorated in East Berbice quarantine. And one of the most visible and the most painful for us in the rest of the country is the fact that the state of human safety is lower now than ever before. And when I speak of human safety, I speak of women, particularly women living on their own, young girls. There have been rape murders. People have been killed in their homes, in their beds. And I think this is very frightening for people who live alone, regardless of the age. Very young girls and very old women. In addition to that, many fishermen, as you know, the quarantine is one of the richest fishing areas of our country. Very important to the economy and very important to the rest of the country. I don't know where we'd be without quarantine fish, but our fishermen in the quarantine have been victims repeatedly of attacks by pirates, usually Guyanese pirates. And this has made that important profession very vulnerable. And many people, they go to sea at a very young age and that's all they know. So when they are scared, when they're driven out of the fishing industry by pirates and bandits, you realize that it's going to affect the economy in a big way. So I would say from the point of view of human safety, we have suffered very heavily in East Berbice quarantine. What will I do? I am going to strengthen the Guyana police force. First of all, in terms of its maritime capability. Right now, the police force's maritime capability is next to nothing. We have to give the police boats, and most important, we have to give them aviation, we have to give them aircraft so they can patrol the coast by air and by sea. Without that, I don't think we'd be able to beat the scourge of piracy. In terms of the threat to women and children, and girl children in particular, we have to introduce a new form of community policing. The PPP administration doesn't understand what community policing is all about, neighborhood policing. It is not about putting people in uniform and giving them handcuffs and batons. It is about building a police force which can relate with the communities. Community policing is not an organization. It is a method of policing communities. In other words, vulnerable people like widows and old women in communities would be regarded as susceptible or potential victims of crime. And a proper community policing, a proper neighborhood policing system would help to patrol those areas where vulnerable people live to protect them from crime. So we need a better police force. We need, most of all, a government which cares about human safety, protecting our women and children. If I can go on, in terms of public security, we have had fierce attacks by bandits, and many of the bandits in East Berbice quarantine come from East Berbice quarantine. These are not people who leave other parts of Guyana and go to quarantine to commit crimes. Many of them are born in that region, they grew up in that region, so they know all the back dams, they know all the ins and outs. We have had very fierce attacks on business persons along that quarantine highway. We've had areas in which policemen simply could not get to the scenes of crime within a few minutes. Sometimes, as you know, as recently as last December, a house was being attacked and it took the police like an hour and a half to get there. Police have to be given vehicles, police have to be given better communication system, and the public must be able to depend on police response within a few minutes rather than hours. So all in all, I would say that public security and human safety in East Berbice Quarantine depend on the type of reforms that only APNU+AFC, under my leadership, would be capable of implementing.
With respect to women and children, the concerns of women, especially for their own children, how would you respond to sentiments that a former brigadier, well, a brigadier would militarize Guyana, and whereby sentiments that are creating fear into some persons living on the East Berbice Quarantine? How would you respond to propagandists who say you are going to militarize Guyana?
There's no danger, there's no threat of militarization. Guyana is nearly 50 years old and it has never been militarized. Right now, or I can't say right now, in the last parliament, the 10th parliament, there were only 2 former military officers. In fact, when you speak of militarization, you have to look at the PPP government, because they have employed more serving and former military officers than the opposition has the capability to employ. So it is the PPP administration which has been militarizing government. If you look in the OP, Office of the President, you will see ex-military officers. Look at the Ministry of Home Affairs, you see ex-military officers. Look at the Civil Defense Commission, look at the Ministry of Finance, you will see ex-military officers. So there's no threat of militarization from David Granger or from the APNU and AFC.
Should the people of East Berbice Quarantine be afraid of David Granger as president?
Of course not. I think they should be assured that that region of Guyana is going to become safe. Because all along, from the last election campaign in 2011 to the present time, I have written about security, I have published about security, and I've given assurances in our press conferences, in our television programs, that APNU and AFC are committed to making Guyana safe. So they have nothing to fear. In fact, they should welcome an APNU-AFC administration. And I hope, and I'm sure, when they go to vote on the 11th of May, they'll be voting for their own safety, they'll be voting for their own security if they vote for APNU-AFC.
Sir, before I let you go, traffic accidents, deadly traffic accidents are rampant in that region. How will you and your reformed police force fix that problem?
Well, the East Berbice Quarantine Highway is not really a highway. It is an old public road which passes through villages. Sometimes you see people just loitering, you see animals, you see people drying paddy, you see building materials, you see shacks at the roadside. And many villages at night are very poorly lit. So people trying to cross the roads, animals trying to keep warm, because of the warmth of the road, all all run into hazards. And what needs to happen is that we need to recognize that the East Berbice Quarantine Road is really a public road. It needs to be properly lit. It needs more traffic policemen. It needs to be better marked so that they are clearly defined pedestrian crossings. Speed limits need to be enforced, and the public needs to be educated about proper use of the road. But particularly, we need strong enforcement so that drunken drivers, speeding minibuses, are brought under the control of the law enforcement agencies. Right now, it is a disaster, and people just go speeding through these villages, and very often the accidents are caused by speeding, driving under the influence of liquor, or obstacles such as animals or building materials on the road. But these are things which could be remedied with a more efficient police force. And this is what APNU and AFC will deliver to the people of East Berbice Quarantine. Fewer road fatalities, fewer road accidents, safer roads for your children to go to school, safer roads for your villagers to go about their business on a day-to-day basis.
Sir, in the final 30 seconds of this special program on making quarantine safe, final pitch, why should a person living in East Berbice quarantine vote David Granger, the Partnership for National Unity Alliance for Change?
Well, of all the candidates, David Granger's got the best and the longest experience in the field of security. I've written about security, I've served in security, and I'm committed to making Guyana a safe place. No other candidate has got my credentials to transform Guyana into a safe destination for investors, and more than anything else, a safe place for its citizens to live. We've seen lots of problems affecting security. Piracy, we've seen banditry, we've seen road fatalities, we've seen all sorts of difficulties, particularly in East Berbice quarantine. And I have that experience. Not only did I serve in the Defense Force, but I also served in various commissions, particularly the Disciplined Forces Commission, which made recommendations which were designed to make Guyana a safe place. I'm also aware that over the years, particularly over the last 15 years, the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration has received recommendations from the British government. And I'm aware of what those recommendations are, and I will employ and introduce and implement those recommendations to make sure that Guyana as a whole is safer, but particularly the residents of East Berbice quarantine.
Thank you very much, sir.